Alright guys, moving on to our next Patreon request, and this one comes from Alistair Bondman, who basically asked me if I could create new units for Starcraft, what would they be? Now, I love Starcraft, and I was like, yeah, it's been a while since I've done anything with Starcraft, so, you know, I don't get to talk about it a lot, so it was really cool to do this as a Patreon request. But yeah, anyway, as always, if you guys would like to have a Patreon request done, just hit the link below, head on over to my Patreon, where you guys can hit the third tier that'll allow you access to do so. As well as check out the other stuff on the other tiers as well. But other than that, let's get started. So, he basically asked like at least a minimum of three new units for each of the three factions in StarCraft. So, you know, I'm going to try my best here on this regard. So let's start with the Terrans. So here are the three units I created for the new units for the Terrans. Starting off with a new unit called Saboteurs. Saboteurs are a lot like ghosts, except they can't call nuclear strikes or anything. Basically what they do is sabotage buildings. Like, they sabotage, like, and damage certain, like, you could have them go, like, they can use like temporary stealth for a short time. It isn't like with ghosts who can stay cloaked like at all times. Here it's like a temporary cloak, and you could use them to like move in and damage like a enemy barracks, so to temporarily keep it from creating new units until like they have to get an SUV. I can't remember the machine, basically the little drones that carry the crystals and whatnot, have them go over and repair it. So it has to, so it keeps a barracks or some other unit from creating more, or like some other building from creating more units, and also gives slight damage to them as well. So it basically, they aren't fighting units. I wouldn't have them, they're more of like stealth and, like I said, sabotage. So you have, so that would be a Saboteur's whole thing, is, well, sabotage. The next one are what I like to call Venators. Venators are, what they are a new kind of marine, of your basic marines, but they have jetpacks. So they have like little jump jets and become, they can go from air to, air to ground units. The flying, however, is only like temporary, so they have like a little fuel, and they have to like land for a short time, fire, and then they can land. But basically, when they're in air, they can fire at ground units and at air units as well. I would also give them like heavier weapons to do more damage to aircraft units while in air. So, and also it'd be almost like they're firing grenades. Also, like they have like they have what was essentially like a grenade launcher. The word got away from me. So there you go. That's Venators. And finally, for our third unit, the third unit, I would like to call, what did I have a name for them anyway? Amphibious units. We don't really have units that can like go under the water. We have, as far as I've learned, we don't really have any units that can like cross over, that can cross the water via water. So what I would have is these amphibious units that can travel, like you could have a squad of them travel under the water, rise up and appear on your enemy, at your enemy's base via water travel. And they'd also operate as like your basic Marines and whatnot, very much based off of like your typical like Marine Corps or Special Forces. So that's just right. So those are the new Terran units I would introduce. The next ones, let's move on to the Zerg. So the Zerg, the first ones I would have are kind of like units, but they act as like bases as well, because everything in the Zerg is alive. Like every building you can have in there is alive. Everything is just nightmare fuel. So here's what I would do with the Zerg. Starting off, our first unit are called Plague Towers. Basically, you can build them, you can have them be created from drones, as usual, and they would act as guard towers, like your typical guard towers. But here's the thing: you could have them get up and move. You can have them like crawl, like they would look like huge like beetles, almost like the beetles from Starship Troopers. That was kind of the thought process, was that they were a lot like that was a lot of the inspiration, were the huge tankers from Starship Troopers. So what they would be is like you could have them like get up and move from one area of the map to another, and then dig underground and just shoot spores at the enemy. Just like I said, it's a mobile guard tower. Next up, our next one are the fuck. The problem is these names, like I think of these names and then I immediately forget about them. That's been kind of a running problem for the most part. So the next one are chimeras. So chimeras are essentially what they are these huge, like, have these long they're almost spider-like. They're very like spider arachnid formed, where what they are kind of like heavy units. They would be alongside giving support to like your ultralisks or something like that. These would also spray acid in like as like one long stream. It's not like it's spitting acid like the hydralisks. The chimeras would like open their jaws and just start like a long spray of acid at enemy units and then fall back. They'd also be capable of launching that acid like artillery. So those are chimeras. And finally, for our last unit, I would like to use. I would like to make what are essentially Jaegers. So Jaegers are these big hulking, like another like brutish class of hunters, where they're these big, almost like gorilla-like monsters that look like just gorilla bug monsters. That's the best way to describe them. And they would be used for, again, heavy assault, just charge in, smash in small units or tanks, and just run out. Yeah. And finally, let's talk about the 3 units I would create for the Protoss. So let's get started with our first unit in this scenario. And our first one are the Incubus. And the Incubus are kind of like Dark Templar. They come from the same cloth, only they're a little more fanatical. Incubus would basically be your units that are these units would be capable of getting like stealth and attacks and whatnot, but they'd also have heavier shields as well as heavier resistance to damage. So these ones would be kind of like how you use Dark Templar for stealth missions, but here you can just use them as basic infantry. So those are Incubus. Next up are Mandrakes. And Mandrakes, I would have them be... Mandrakes would essentially be like units that could essentially terraform an area. Now we're going complete. Like these units right here would never be used. Same with like the amphibious units from. I'm fully aware these kind of break the game. But now we're just for all the diehard Starcraft fans out there are probably watching this. They're like, now you're breaking the game. Yeah, because I'm having fun now. Like I'm well aware these are not gonna like these wouldn't exactly make it into the game, but I just thought it would be kind of fun to use no matter what. Anyway, so these units would the Mandrakes would basically be used to alter terrain, but only for a short time before the power would wear off. But for the meantime, you could basically create like there's a path your enemy soldiers are marching through, and what they would do is just make a blocked path, so now they're stuck, and you basically make it now a kill zone for your units. Anyway, and finally, after the Mandrakes, our final unit for the Mandrakes are what I'd like to call Abyss, the Abyss. And the Abyss are these wraith-like shadow creatures that would be almost like the psychic energy of dead Templars, like the aftermath of when they die, and these things would just come at you like a fucking nightmare. So the Abyss are just these dark shrouds, and summoning them would be almost like you're committing heresy, really, of bringing these dead Templar back from their eternal rest. So, yeah. As how they would work, I didn't really think of the idea. I just thought it'd be it's just cool in concept. So there you go, guys. That is pretty much my new units for StarCraft. Like I said, a lot of these are game-breaking, but still. Other than that, I'd like to thank Alistair Bondman for this Patreon request and continued patronage. And you guys tell me in the comments below, what do you think of these units, and what kind of units would you make for StarCraft? Just comment below, let me know. Other than that, hope y'all enjoyed this. I'm Mr. Multiverse. I'll see you next time in the Multiverse.